And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a panel discussion titled The Building of Hyper-Resilient Cybersecurity Ecosystem. And I'm going to introduce to you the moderator of this panelist, who will be later on introducing the speakers. But our moderator is the CEO and founder of CyberKnight. Put your hand together for Avinash Advani.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we are the last session between this great thought leadership and lunch. So I hope you'll give us the attention, and we'll be able to wrap up as soon as we can and then move on to lunch very quickly. So please, it's my great pleasure actually to call up on stage our esteemed panelists from today. I will ask them each to come up on stage and introduce themselves as they come up when they sit down. But if I can please have Mr. Emil Abu Saleh, Mr. Andreas Constantinides, and Mr. Saad Al-Gharni, please join me on stage. If you can just sit under, yeah, here we go. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this session today is actually directly related to the theme surrounding this VirtuPort MENA ISC event 2024. It's around hyper-resilient cybersecurity. I have a quick question for the audience, very quick question. How many of you before this VirtuPort MENA ISC have heard of the term hyper-resilient cybersecurity? Please put your hands up, or if you have heard of it, please put your hands up. That's what I thought, one person. Yeah. Okay, great. Exactly what I expected.
Avinash is not a surprise.
Not a surprise at all. You know, and this is why I really enjoy speaking at VirtuPort's panels and MENA ISC discussions, because they're extremely innovative around bringing the latest cutting edge, bleeding edge terminology that binds the different key concepts of cybersecurity. Now, hyper-resilient cybersecurity is a thing. But I thought before we jump into the panel discussion for every one of the audience here, let me help to define what is hyper-resilience for you. I will do that, and then we will jump into the panel discussion. But before I do that, I think it's really important for us to know who are our esteemed panelists who are going to be sharing their valuable, insightful feedback with you all today. So if I'm going to go one by one and just request these three gentlemen to just quickly introduce themselves and give some background so you can understand about who it is that's going to be giving you this great, valuable insight today. So let's start with Andreas.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon to all. My name is Andreas Constantinides. I'm the Director of Managed Services at Odyssey Cybersecurity. I have a 20-year experience in cybersecurity, started as an engineer, a pen tester, then moved to building a SOC, managing the SOC, and now I'm the Director of Managed Services, a bunch of SOCs around the globe. And I have also wrote a book about Cybersecurity 101, to help junior engineers, job seekers to get into the industry.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Emil, I think many of you know him. He's quite a legend in the industry. But Emil, for the audience that maybe don't know you, please, quick intro.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Emil Abu Saleh. I've been with Proofpoint for the last 5 years. I worked for a company called Proofpoint. It's a cybersecurity company. Before that, I worked for other multinational companies in the cybersecurity space. I've been in the cybersecurity for the last 20 years and the IT industry for the last 25 years.
Shukran, Emil.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Mr. Saad Al-Gharni.
Yes, my name is Saad Al-Gharni. I'm working now as a CISO for Mala'a company. Mala'a is one of the fintech companies in Saudi. I have more than 14 years both in IT and cybersecurity field. I have a chance to have experience in government and financial industries. Yes, thank you for your effort to attend this session today.
Thank you, Saad. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Emil. Thank you, Saad. Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to have a conversation. This is going to be a very fluid, dynamic dialogue. It's not scripted. We're not, actually, I have no idea what they're going to say to any of the questions that we are going to ask, because it's about being, real-time and dynamic. Now, I want to just take you back to the definition. What is hyper-resilient cybersecurity? I'll tell you a unique fact that Emil shared with me earlier today. This concept is actually defined already within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Indeed.
So it's already on the Vision 2030 journey that the kingdom is on. But as a global concept, hyper-resilient cybersecurity is still a new concept. If I read you a definition for a moment, just to make sure everyone understands it, because we all know what cyber resilience is. We all know what cybersecurity is. But what is hyper-resilient cybersecurity? Hyper-resilient cybersecurity is a highly adaptive and robust approach to cybersecurity that emphasizes continuous protection, rapid recovery, flexible response to evolving threats. But see, what I just said sounds similar to cyber resilience, right? But where it gets unique is that it involves the use of advanced technologies like AI and real-time monitoring to quickly detect, mitigate, and recover from cyber attacks. So it's very much about the next generation of cyber resilience. So, the summary of this definition is that it includes proactive defense, automation, scalability, redundancy, and real-time adaptation. So it's obviously a very key topic that we should be talking about. Now, as we get started, ladies and gentlemen, we know that cyber threats in the kingdom and around the region are becoming more and more sophisticated. The concept of hyper-resilient cybersecurity is going to become and has become a crucial defense strategy. We cannot think only about traditional anymore, but we need to go beyond and focus on being robust, adaptive, and self-healing across different technology domains. It's important that we have ecosystems at the technology infrastructure, but also at the collaboration infrastructure to be able to benefit from advanced technologies like AI so that we can detect, respond, and recover much quicker from attacks. So really the goal is, with hyper-resilience to have a framework that can predict and anticipate risks before they materialize, and to make sure that all of you with your organizations can continue the operations and protect your most critical assets. So today's discussion with these esteemed panelists is really going to involve how do we explore the strategies of hyper-resilient cybersecurity and what innovations are essential to develop these ecosystems. So I'm really excited today, gentlemen, to be with you here. What I'm going to do, gents, is run through a couple of key related thoughts here that I want to share with you, and I want to get your feedback for the audience. So let's start with Andreas. Now, Andreas, we know this, the people call it the 3 Ps or the PPT, right? People, process, technology, or in some cases, people, process, product, right? Yeah. Let's go with PPT. People, process, technology. What are the essential people, process, technology components that you think are required to establish a hyper-resilient cybersecurity framework? And how can the organizations in this room and others, kind of ensure the seamless integration and coordination across these elements?
Yeah. All right. Let me start with technology, which is what we are most familiar with. I will say that we need ways in order to be able to detect the live threats that are coming to our organization. And we have ways, multiple ways. We have SIEMs, we have threat detection, investigation, and response platforms, other platforms that are helping us understand the attacks that are coming to us. That needs to be enhanced with AI capabilities, be able to predict what's coming, be able to anticipate what's coming, adapt our systems to be able to defend ourselves. That is for detecting the live threats that are coming to us. We need to know what happened in the past to our organization. Are there any leaked data out there in the dark web, in underground forums? Know what happened in the past, because if we have leaked data out there, at some point we will start receiving attacks based on those data. Will be part of attack campaigns. Our users will be part of attack campaigns. So we need to know what happened in the past, and of course need to be ready for what's coming in the future. We should harden our systems, review our operations all the time, know our vulnerabilities, continuously know our vulnerabilities, not periodically. And I think this will cover us in terms of technology and preparation. Of course, we need to have the right processes, the right procedures, the right methodologies, be agile, followed, receive metrics on those processes that we have put into place. And if something is not cutting it, something is not working, we need to change it, adapt it. And the last thing, of course, is the weakest link, which is, of course, the people. We need to continuously train the people periodically in our organization, assess what they have learned, if they have actually understood the content, test them, and verify that they are following the best practices, right?
Fair enough. I mean, you talked about people, and in this context, I think our next panelist here has a major role to play in his organization and in his experience when it comes to people security, right? Around awareness and many other things around people. So, Emil, you know, the concept of cyber resilience and cybersecurity are very closely aligned, right? But what is the difference from your point of view, and what does it mean to be hyper resilient?
All right. So when we look at it, let's go back in time. When we started talking about security, it used to be called IT security. Then a few years later, we introduced the term information security. Then after that, we came up with the cybersecurity. And now we're talking about cyber resilience. And after that, the Saudi kingdom has come with the hyper resilience. So these are the innovation and the natural move from a cybersecurity perspective and evolution. So when we look at it, what's the difference? I will give an example, especially to talk about when it comes to hyper resilience, cyber resilience, and all of this. So when we talk, I'll take an example. For example, consider that you have a car and you want to use your car in a hyper-miling way. Let's put it this way so you can correlate. Imagine like, okay, you can use your car, for example, in a good way that will drive you from one place to the other while you can customize the fuel consumption and all of this. But if you want to drive your car in a hyper-resilient way, so you take into consideration multiple factors, the most important part is to get you from point A to point B, definitely, but the hyper-resilient parts come into place where you can do calculated measures to get you from A to B with the best fuel consumption, for example, the fastest way, and you will be able to get to your goal. So if I link it back to what we're talking when it comes to hyper-resilient and cybersecurity resilient, so definitely when we talk about cybersecurity, it used to be about protection. When we started talking about resilient, it's not only about protection. It's about protection and also providing the continuity and availability. So what does it mean in other words? So yes, from a cybersecurity perspective, we look at it and we say, okay, I'm protected if something goes down. I need to make sure that the business is not impacted. I need to continue providing the service in a degraded way, but still my organization will be able to still continue doing the business. When we talk about hyper-resilient, we need to take into consideration all of this, plus we need to take into consideration the cost factor and the integration between technologies. And when we talk about cost, there are multiple factors that can help to reduce the cost, provide the availability and the continuity and all of this in a nutshell. So I'm not sure if I was able to answer the question.
No, I think you did perfectly. It's like adding a rocket engine to your car, basically. Now, Emil, do you think resilience, so cybersecurity was sort of Gen 1, resilience was Gen 2, and hyper-resilience is Gen 3 almost, right? Two questions, just to continue on what you said.
Yes.
Is resilience not enough for today's evolving threats? And is that why we need hyper-resilience? Question one. I'll leave you with that first.
When I look at the hyper-resilient term, it's definitely an appealing term. It's something like everybody wants to do the best. And we know in the Middle East, we all tend, and in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we all tend to be the leaders in what we do. And we're the innovators. And that's something I have to give the credit to this region because we're the leader in this. So when we go back to your question, Avinash, definitely, if we look at regulations, for example, that's also another thing. If you go back and check, for example, and search for hyper-resilient, what is hyper-resilient? What's the difference between resilient and hyper-resilient cybersecurity? So you will see there is a little bit around this topic. But if you dig down into regulations and everybody and those regulations and where companies need to comply, you will see that what is there around hyper-resilient is technically more than being resilient only.
I agree.
So definitely it's the natural next step and next move.
I fully agree. And I think, you said the right things. I mean, cybersecurity was focused on detection, resilience was focused on prevention, and now with hyper-resilience, it's about being predictive or adaptive. So you can actually determine the threat before you need to detect and before you need to prevent. So and that's where that AI and the the collaborative piece comes in. So I think that's a good takeaway, that the predictive element is a key part of it. Thank you, Emil. So Saad, if I can kind of just ask you in the context of, because there are several financial services companies in this room, banks, et cetera, in the context of financial services, we know fintech is a hot space, right? But financial services and wealth management is an old school domain. In this domain, what are the unique challenges that you think organizations face when it comes to protecting sensitive data? And how do you think that hyper-resilient cybersecurity strategies align with regulatory requirements in the kingdom in the context of the financial sector? It's a long question, I'm sorry, but I wanted to make sure that, Yani, it's a combination of, let me just summarize in short way. In the financial sector, your context, where you come from this background, what do you feel are the challenges that this sector faces, and why hyper-resilience can come in to support those challenges, especially when you consider the regulatory environment of the kingdom?
Okay, let me highlight this term, financial industry. Financial industry containing multiple phases, multiple slides, bank sector, finance sector, fintech sector, and most of the fintech, I will talk specifically for the fintech. Fintech companies, it's not like much mature corporate entities like a bank. There are a lot of challenges, by the way, for fintech company because it's categorized as a startup company or initial companies. What the main challenges for fintech company in context to protect sensitive data? As a fintech company, as a financial company, we dealing with the more sensitive data that touch personal information, that touch financial informations or data for customer, for client, and millions of record a daily basis. The responsibility to keep this sensitive data far away of the wrong hand, it's aggressive, and it's serious for us to be more mature to in the protection side, and as my colleague explained about the differentiation between protection and resilience. Protection was the let's say old school. Now we talk about beyond protection and resilience in case, especially in our situation. If we are facing a lot of challenges to be in much mature situation for protection, we should to care about hyper resilience. It's serious and it's crucial for this kind of situation for small company or for startup company, because they still they have a gap and they have strategy to reach the maturity, the highest maturity, let's say, or the mature that can be accepted by the regulator. Then we need to focus on the resilience, how will be in good situation in case we facing some incident or some breach. One challenge also regarding sensitive information or sensitive data, the threat actor is sophisticated day by day. they continuously developing the technique and technologies, and they using the new technologies for the attacks. We not expect to receive traditional attacks because they more smart to move and to engage the new technologies in the attack. We need to be aligned also or consider we have a good situation to be a detective for these kind of attacks. It's a challenge, it's a real challenge, but regarding the second part of the question for how we can align with the regulator requirements, I can answer by two answers for this part. First part is challenge, a real challenge for us to be comply with the regulator requirements. It's tough, but the good thing, it is support for our company and all companies in this field. The regulator here is SAMA, Saudi Central Bank, for financial and bank sector, and for the insurance, it's the new regulator IA, Insurance Authority. It's very supportive for the companies and for the sector to make all of organization align with the vision of kingdom and to be in front of using the technology. And as much as we using the technology based on our nature as a fintech, we expose a lot of threats. That's now very, very, very sensitive and crucial for us to be mature in cybersecurity, and we should to following the requirement that or controls that mentioned in the framework. How we will handle it, we will merge we working to merge this requirement into our strategy. We cannot from day one be aligned with this control, but there are a lot of workarounds. We can have long term for strategy and put it in as initiatives for roadmap. I think this good insight for who trying to achieve a lot of controls in a small size or medium size for companies.
Excellent. Thank you, Saad. Very insightful around the financial sector. If we can double click a little bit for the rest of the audience around this question, the second part of the question, because you covered really, the importance of the regulatory frameworks in the financial sector, obviously, but also the challenges in ensuring that you're compliant, but the challenges in ensuring that you can also be hyper resilient within the sector. So Emil and Andreas, if you can help also, you share your thoughts on this particular question. What do you both feel are some of the biggest challenges that you foresee in maintaining cyber resilience, over the next few years, and how should organizations prepare to overcome these challenges? We've heard from Saad in the context of the fintech sector, but you gentlemen come from a slightly different background. What do you think are some of these biggest challenges to go with this hyper-resilient approach?
Definitely what Saad said about complying with regulations is a huge challenge, especially if you have to comply with global compliance regulations. It's from one hand, it's very hard. From another hand, it's not impossible, because many compliance regulations are similar to each other. Many regulations we see here in the Saudi Arabia are very similar to the regulations applied in Europe. So if you implement the right processes, the right procedures, you are a step ahead to comply with the rest of the regulations. But the challenges I see on towards a hyper-resilient future is one, the compliance regulations. Another thing is the sophistication of the attacks and the increased volume of attacks arriving to their organizations. We can see that from the SOC perspective as well. There are many automated attacks coming, very different attacks from what we have used to. The large volume, so the way to defeat that is to implement the right technologies, the right processes, utilize the help of the AI to defeat all these automatic sophisticated attacks, mostly developed by AI mechanisms. So as a defender, you need to utilize those methodologies to defend. And last but not least is the gap to human expertise. we see a problem in identifying, finding cybersecurity engineers, experienced engineers to engage in our teams.
Fair enough, Andreas, absolutely. I was wondering when AI would be mentioned a couple of times, and you mentioned it both in one sentence, so good. Emil, what are your thoughts on this question?
Right. From my perspective, I think many businesses are still struggling to become resilient.
Yeah.
And definitely, it's a dream for every organization to become hyper-resilient. So my view on this is that we are in a journey. Most of the companies are today on their journey to be cyber-resilient, and definitely the natural next step would be hyper-resilient. So when we look at the challenges that every organization is facing, definitely there are so many challenges that every CISO, for example, is facing. And based on my discussion with CISOs that I meet in the industry and in the Kingdom of Saudi, I see one of the biggest challenges and how to overcome this challenge is, for example, having the CISOs talk to the board. This is one of the challenges that I see with most of the CISOs. And the good news about this, I want to share the statistic with you. I'm sorry, I'm going to refer to a survey that we did at Proofpoint last year via a third party, in 2023 and 2024. In 2023, 53% of the CISOs in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia said they had eye-to-eye interaction with the board. While in 2024, you're going to be surprised, 93% of the CISOs in the kingdom has said that they have eye-to-eye interaction with the board.
It's huge increase.
So what does this mean? That means that we are moving in the right direction. Definitely, the CISOs interacting with the board will be able to know how to talk to the board, how to explain to the board the cyber resilience, consequences, challenges, and how to talk to the board to get the budget. This is one thing. The second challenge that I see, Avinash, when it comes to this topic, is that most of the time, organizations, when they put the budget, they always look at how much budget do I need in terms of resources, how much budget do I need in terms of technology. However, sometimes we miss, there is a link between the technology and the people, which is the awareness of the people. And this is an area where we also need to consider, where we need to put some little investment here to educate our people so people can become also resilient and they know how to deal with attacks. And we all know that the communication and email, for example, remains the #1 threat vector. And people are still getting emails on a daily basis, and WhatsApps, and SMS, and all of this. And those contains, for example, link. There is also the urgency factor that plays a role. And not everybody in your organization and in our industry, in the global industry, is equipped to deal with this. So what we need to do, we need to spend some money on that area to educate our people and to act as a first layer of defense. So that's one thing. The third point that I believe is also important, the use of AI technology and artificial intelligence and machine learning and so on and so forth. Why is this important? Because the cyber criminals are already using it to attack you. So if the technology that you're investing in is not using those technologies, then it's the time for you to take a step back and to re-evaluate your investment. Am I putting my investment in the right direction? Is this something that can keep me ready for next? Am I ready for next? So you have to assume the worst and act accordingly. So these are my 3 points that I would like to highlight.
Makes a lot of sense, Emil.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
Sure.
You think communication with the board, CISO communicating with the board is a win of the CISO, or the board understood the need for cybersecurity, so they opened their doors for the CISO?
Look, at the end of the day, they both work for the same organization. It's a win-win. The board is winning by being more educated about the threats. The CISO is winning on the other side by getting more budget and by sharing the risks to the board. So definitely the way I see it, it's a win-win, and it is something that has to happen if it's not happening. And as I said, 93% already are doing it here.
100%. And I think the answer to your question is based on Emil's summary, both ways.
Yes.
It cannot be one way. If the board goes alone without having the right security leaders, it's not worthwhile. If you have a good security leader, but the board doesn't understand the importance of cybersecurity, again, you're going to have a futile situation. It has to be collaborative.
One thing I want to highlight here, and I believe based on my interaction with CISOs, that's something maybe the industry can look at that we are missing. Sometimes the CISOs are not speaking the board language. And that's something we, as community, we should work together to come and equip the CISO to be able to talk the board language. So at least that would make it easy and it doesn't get lost in translation.
That's right. Thank you, gentlemen. So speaking of the CISO language, we have a fellow CISO sitting on this panel with us today. So, Saad, looking ahead from your point of view, okay, what emerging technologies? I mean, Emil and Andreas and you also covered a couple of them. But what emerging technologies, practices, industry trends do you foresee playing a crucial role in enabling hyper-resilient cyber defenses in the future in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
For sure. For sure, the future is for the emerging technology, for the new technology that can expedite the time to achieve maturity. That can also combine all multiple technology, multiple features in one platform. So we can rely on one platform to provide multiple, let's say, detection or response or recovery function for incident or for protection, to stay in monitoring, stay and protect for by, let's say, expect what the behavior or what the attack that will coming based on engaging, let's say, ML, machine learning or AI, and the mechanism for going back to the historical data and scanning the logs and correlated events together to make insight about the data, about the attacks. This is a kind of signatures, kind of IOCs, kind of anomaly behavior that could attack you. For these technologies, it will help a lot in this area. I think also in, let's say, next generation for each technology.
Got it.
We're looking for the next generation for each technology. If we have XDR, we need the next technology, next generation for that. That's mean a lot of layer of integration between some core security, cybersecurity solutions like SIM solution, like NDR, XDR. We need to extend the future by engaging ML and AI within the functionality of this technology. These will help a lot to make sure we have and same side of the attackers, if they using the new technology, also we using new technique to be in a safe way.
I totally agree, and actually, that's a great answer. And related to the definition of hyper-resilience, there's a one word that I want to add to what you said, Mr. Saad, which is real time, right? That was part of the key definition of hyper-resilience, right? Along this. So in that context, now moving to Andreas, Mr. Saad mentioned monitoring. He mentioned a few people. How does continuous monitoring and advanced analytics contribute to hyper-resilient cybersecurity? But it's important to focus on that context of real time.
Yeah, believe it or not, there are still companies that have their monitoring service either by them or an MSSP working 8 to 5 instead of around the clock. So we need to have continuous monitoring. But one important aspect to see here is identify and define what kind of things we are monitoring. There are many companies that implement continuous monitoring, but for a specific area of their environment, just to comply with a compliance need that we need to monitor that system, that server, that network. The most important thing here is to implement holistic telemetry, full visibility, provide full visibility to our security operations center, either built internally or via an MSSP, and implement the right use cases for our SOC to monitor and receive the right alerts. It's not an off-the-shelf way to receive a repository of use cases and just implement it. We need to carefully review the threat landscape of our organization, the industry that we are in, implement the right use cases for that, and also
context aware.
Yeah, contextual information also by AI, and define the baseline of our network, the baseline of our flows, the normal traffic, and have machine learning and AI methodologies and mechanisms identify the abnormalities.
Fair enough. Makes complete sense. You mentioned compliance twice in your words, and I think every single panelist today has mentioned compliance and regulation. So let me just double click on that a little bit. Emil, I know that Proofpoint has recently put a local POP into Saudi Arabia for their technology stack. Now, that's related obviously to data sovereignty, data residency, data privacy. I want to understand in the context now of regulations in the kingdom, right? And how does data privacy, data residency, data sovereignty regulations fit into this hyper-resilience context?
All right, so yeah, that's true. We're trying to comply with the local regulations here in the Kingdom of Saudi. That was the primary reason for us having a local data center in country. So, but when I look at the regulations in general, so as I mentioned previously, definitely there are regulations about resilient cybersecurity, but as I mentioned, in every regulation, you will see that the aim from those regulations is to be hyper-resilient. So again, I mentioned this and I'm repeating this. There is nothing at the moment, there are no regulations, let me be clear and rephrase it. There are no regulations about hyper-resilient, but there are regulations about being cyber-resilient. And if we look at the regulations in the kingdom and in the Middle East and globally, we can see that in all these regulations, we see that the aim is to be hyper-resilient. So in other words, I would expect that this will be fine-tuned and there will be new versions of the cyber-resilient to be more hyper-resilient. But as of today, this doesn't exist as a regulation here or globally.
And do you feel...
As far as I know, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think I agree with you also based on my research that there's no compliance mandate per se on the hyper-resilience today. But just quickly to move, before we move to the final question for all of you that I want to ask, so data sovereignty, data residency, data privacy as a part of regulations you think is fundamentally part of hyper-resilience?
Definitely. When we look at the geopolitical situation and the data sovereignty, definitely, I agree that's something that every region and every country should be having in order to have that hyper-resilient.
Absolutely.
So remember, we mentioned being resilient, and hyper-resilient means providing the connectivity, providing the availability, being always available in a degraded way, but at least you're still not impacting the business. So your business will not be impacted. Having this locally here, data sovereignty in country would provide maybe better, I would say, connectivity and the compliance with the local requirement.
Yeah, I think so. I think, when it comes to resiliency, it's also ensuring your data is 100% secure from external access or external attackers. Sovereignty and privacy of that data is fundamental, right? To ensure the resilience of that data, 100%. So gentlemen, last question. We have a little bit of time left. I just want to open this up to the audience before we wrap up. We spoke about a lot of interesting topics today. I hope the audience found it interesting. But I want to understand now, today we have on this panel, financial sector, we have a couple of vendors, service providers, but there are a lot of organizations in this room, in the government sector, various different sectors. How do you feel is the importance of cross-industry collaboration, such as private-public partnerships, and information sharing when it comes to hyper-resilient cybersecurity?
I can answer that.
Please, I would like an answer from all of you, please.
All right, if I look at it from a CISO's perspective, I'm pretty sure every CISO in this room has, the biggest challenge that every CISO has is that they have invested in multiple technologies and they want to see the return of investment, and their aim is to have all these technologies talking together so they can benefit from that investment. So if I look at it from a technology perspective, this is something on us as vendors. We need to provide more collaboration and integration.
At the integration level.
Integration.
Totally agree.
Definitely. That's something, and as a matter of fact, I was sitting this morning with one of the CISOs. He was talking to me. I did this investment with this vendor, without mentioning the name, this vendor and this vendor. And I'm looking for the next couple of years that I'm going to put more investment with these three vendors because I can see the integration between those three together. I mean, my company, I'm lucky that my company was one of them. I'm not going to talk about the rest, but this integration would make the life of the CISOs easier, and they can see more return of investment, and they can get more benefits and visibility.
Saad?
I have one example for this scenario as we under the SAMA regulation, SAMA regulator, sorry. They sharing the new insight or the new insight or IOCs with us monthly basis, sometime bi-monthly. We still updated about they keeping us updated about what happening, what the new scenarios, what the new technique, what the new attacks behavior that someone detected, someone report about it, and they doing a good job in this part. This is good example about
It's a great example.
knowledge.
Information sharing from the regulatory authorities, be it SAMA, be it NCA, whoever, to
Yeah, because
the
they have
respective
the
organizations.
visibility for all sectors under that.
100%. Very, very good response also. And Andreas, last but not least.
I agree with both. Consolidation of technologies, sharing information between two technologies, having technologies working together, but also from the service level, from the SOC perspective, sharing of threats, indicators of attacks, indicators of compromise via threat sharing platforms is very crucial. Now the nations, the government have their own SOC, and they can communicate with the private sector SOC and share upcoming threats, share identified threats, and have these collaboratively work together.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's such a pleasure
Good.
to have these panelists on
Sharing the
the stage with
intelligence.
me. Can I ask you all to give me a big round of applause for Andreas, Emil, and Mr. Saad, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Avinash. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.